Pop-up headlights! Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Start of day 3 now. The primary objective for today is driving roads. We're hoping to hunt out the very best Ireland has to offer, which are down south. However, we do have a little agenda for this morning. We're hoping to go and do some souvenir shopping.
At a car boot sale.
At a car boot sale. Richard is very, very against us going to a car boot sale.
Well, have you ever been to a car boot sale?
That's why I want to go to a car boot sale. I've been to like Antiques Roadshow though and things like that.
No, there's nothing like that. They're not like a magical place like full of rare and valuable items. A car boot sale, they're all the same, and there's like 3 things you always find.
Alright, okay. What am I going to find?
Firstly, tools for sale.
I love tools for sale.
All of them are stolen.
Oh, that's good. Right.
Broken children's toys.
I don't care about those.
And plenty of dodgy, usually untaxed vans.
Right. I think we're going to find wondrous, amazing things. People are going to be selling all sorts of trinkets and delights.
Well, we could sell this dashboard.
Nice little transfer there into your hate of the MX-5's dashboards. Go on, vocalise your opinion. So,
the MX-5's dashboard is the worst component of this car.
In your opinion, that's a bit harsh, right?
The layout is absolutely fine. Actually, I like the layout. It's simple, looks neat, and everything's easy to find. The thing I have a big issue with, though, is it's all made of plastic. And plastic against plastic, it's all the time creaking and squeaking. And it drives me crazy, particularly if the roof's up, there's less wind noise, and all you can hear is squeaking.
True, yeah.
I know when Mazda made the car, you know, they had to keep the production costs down, but on a 3-hour motorway ride, all you're hearing is squeaking. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But you can fix it.
You can fix it.
Which we looked into doing.
It involves taking the dashboard out, taking it all to pieces, and then putting it back together with little foam inserts in between all the gaps so they don't squeak.
Yeah.
It would be my first thing I'd do if this was my car.
But it's not your car.
It's not, so I've got to just deal with the annoying squeaking.
Deal with the fact that I can't be asked to do it. Right. Is that your rant over?
Rant is over.
Lovely. All right. Well, onwards to the car boot sale.
Yay.
Handily, there is a much quicker solution to the dashboard's squeaking than filling it with foam. You can simply drown out the sound with wind noise. So we pulled over to drop the roof and do just that. We were continuing to head south as we'd heard the cream of the crop in terms of driving roads were to be found at almost the very bottom of Ireland. En route, however, as planned, we made a stop at that local car boot sale in the hope of finding ourselves a souvenir. Here's how it went.
Are you ready?
Yep. Ready to go souvenir shopping?
Not really taking me to the standard souvenir shop, have you, Graham? We're going to get Irish clutter.
That's very rude.
Well, that's what it's sold.
I'm hoping for something quality.
That's what's sold at car boot sales.
Rich,
Yeah.
have I made a huge mistake?
You might have. So, Graham, you ready to play car boot bingo? Okay. On your left here, you've got some suspiciously sourced tools. No receipts given. On your right, some pretty manky looking toys. And what's this up ahead? What have we got, Graham? Maybe this is our dodgy van?
It's fine.
That looks well untaxed. That's 3 for 3. Bingo!
Right, let's go.
Maybe they sold your car.
Okay, souvenir shopping was a complete bust.
I did tell you it would be.
You actually did as well, yeah. It's my fault as well because I'm always just looking for autosport memorabilia when I go to these kind of places. specifically Formula One stuff, because I'm just such a massive fan of the sport. In hindsight, Ireland is absolutely not the place to look for Formula One memorabilia. Historically, there's only ever been one Irish Formula One team. With that being said, it was actually a big name in the sport until fairly recently, and it's got one hell of a story behind it. I'm going to tell you the story of Jordan Grand Prix.
Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi, Ayrton Senna. 3 names that simply scream talent. Having talent, however, isn't much use in motor racing if no one in the paddock can see it. Fortunately for these 3 drivers, one team had its eyes open and gave them the helping hands they needed to make history. That team was Jordan Grand Prix. That talent for spotting talent can be attributed to the team's founder, owner, principal and namesake, Mr. Eddie Jordan, and his journey into creating a Formula One team began when he was still in primary school. Mind you, he didn't realise it at the time, as whilst often folks in Formula One are seemingly bred for the sport, their parents may be racers and athletes and they are often already in the karting seat by the time they're a handful of years old. This was not the case for Eddie Jordan. No, his upbringing was exceptionally ordinary. He was born into a normal family that was neither rich nor poor. His parents didn't shoehorn him into a go-kart before he could walk. In fact, they hoped he would become a priest. And managing and owning a motor racing team wasn't something that particularly played on his mind whilst he was a boy. But even from that young age, it was apparent he had what it takes. Whilst in his primary school playground, young Eddie Jordan would spend his lunchtimes trading conkers and marbles with his classmates for a small profit. Then he went on to buy and sell school books to his fellow students, making a little more profit. He was a born entrepreneur, a born deal maker. Still though, motor racing didn't become a significant part of Eddie's life until he was already in his 20s. At the time, he was working as a bank clerk in Dublin. However, he briefly moved to Jersey due to a bank strike, and it was there where he first experienced karting. And he was immediately hooked. Eddie was talented behind the wheel. That much is apparent from the fact that upon his return to Dublin, he won the Irish Kart Championship in 1971 and then went on to race in the Irish Formula Ford Championship, Formula 3 and Formula 2. He even tested a McLaren F1 car. However, even by his own admission, Eddie Jordan wasn't a world-class driver. He'd started it all too late in life and he didn't see himself progressing to a full-time drive in Formula 1. There was an aspect of motorsport he was exceptionally talented at though, something he greatly enjoyed and something he wasn't too late to start at. Team management. So, in 1980 he put down his driving gloves, picked up his team principal blazer and started up Eddie Jordan Racing. Of course, he couldn't just dive into Formula 1 straight away. Eddie was pretty low on funds, so he started off in a lower division of Formula 3, which required a smaller budget. But that doesn't mean he didn't help some big names there too. It was whilst he was running his Formula 3 team in 1982 that Jordan met a young driver called Ayrton da Silva, and Jordan, seeing great potential in this fairly unproven driver, gave him a test in an Eddie Jordan Racing Formula 3 car. Young Mr. Silva was staggeringly quick and became a behemoth of motorsport. The reason you may have never heard of him is because a short while after testing with Eddie Jordan Racing, Ayrton da Silva began using a different last name, and that name was Senna. Senna certainly wasn't the only talent nurtured by Eddie Jordan Racing in the lower divisions. During the team's stints in both Formula 3 and Formula 3000, opportunities were given to drivers such as Martin Brundle, Johnny Herbert, Eddie Irvine and Jean Alesi, who even lived with Jordan and his young family whilst he raced for the team. Jordan's talent for finding and nurturing these stars of the future wasn't the only trick up his sleeve though. He was also a bit of a whiz at drumming up sponsorship. When moving into Formula 3000 in 1988, Jordan was close to getting Camel cigarettes to sponsor his team. However, the company wasn't totally convinced, and it seemed like the deal may not materialise. So, Eddie Jordan walked down the paddock to a fellow Formula 3000 team who was already sponsored by Camel cigarettes. He convinced this team to lend him a few of their Camel branded decals and stickered up his lead driver, Johnny Herbert's race car. Herbert went on to win the race in the Camel logo covered Jordan car, at which point Eddie Jordan got on the phone to Autosport magazine and he managed to convince them to put a photo of that Camel branded Jordan Formula 3000 car on the front cover of their next issue. Camel cigarettes were so damn impressed that they quickly agreed that sponsoring Eddie Jordan's team was an excellent idea, and that sponsorship saw Eddie Jordan Racing through its 3 years of competing in Formula 3000. That sponsorship money, plus his eye for up-and-coming superstars, helped Eddie Jordan lead his team to race wins in both the UK and abroad, and championship wins in both Formula 3 and Formula 3000. So, after certifying his team as the great white shark of the lower divisions, Eddie Jordan decided it was time to go hunting in a bigger pool. And therefore, in 1990, Eddie Jordan scraped together all of his personal savings and the Formula 1 team, Jordan Grand Prix, was established, ready to start competing the very next year. So, how did Jordan Grand Prix announce their arrival to Formula 1? By unveiling what is, in my and countless other people's opinions, one of the most beautiful Formula 1 cars to ever grace the tarmac. Painted green to reflect Jordan's Irish heritage and because the team was sponsored by the Irish Tourism Board, the 191 and its livery once again tells a story as to just how talented Eddie Jordan was with pursuing sponsors. Convincing companies to pay you thousands or sometimes even millions of pounds in order to have their logo displayed on your car is no easy task, and when you're a new, unknown and unproven name in the paddock, which most likely will be racing somewhere towards the back of the grid, the task is even more difficult. Eddie Jordan had a brilliant idea though. These are some of the most obvious sponsors on the 1991 Jordan Grand Prix F1 car. Notice anything about them? How about the fact that they all use the colour green as part of their branding? Eddie Jordan realised his team wasn't going to be a simple sell, but he figured that as his car is green, the companies that are going to be most open to the idea of sponsorship are going to be those whose branding colours match the colour of his car. So rather than trying to get the likes of Kit Kat and Canon on board, he focused his attention on wooing 7up, Fujifilm and Tic Tac. It was brilliant and successful, but it wasn't all smooth running. The Jordan 191 wasn't initially called the 191. Instead, it was called the 91-1. 91 stood for the year, and 1 stood for Formula 1. The problem here was it looks exactly the same as 911, as in Porsche 911. Porsche weren't best pleased about all of this, and they wanted the name changed. To be honest, it really wasn't the end of the world for the Jordan team. It just required reprinting a couple of stickers. However, Eddie Jordan caught the scent of a deal to be made. He flew over to Stuttgart and told the Porsche executives that changing the name of the Formula 1 car was going to cost thousands of pounds in rebranding. And therefore, once Eddie agreed to change the name of his car, as a token of their gratitude, Porsche gave him a brand new 911 to use for 18 months, completely free of charge for his apparent troubles. Once the racing began, Jordan Grand Prix proved that it wasn't just a team in it for the fun and free stuff. In the end of 1991, they finished an impressive 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, which was highly commendable for a team making its debut. However, Jordan's real story of that season was when a little-known driver called Michael Schumacher joined the team halfway through the year. And what makes the story so great is that Jordan Grand Prix didn't give Michael Schumacher a Formula 1 seat because Eddie saw his potential. In fact, perhaps the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time ended up driving a Jordan because of sheer Irish luck. Eddie Jordan wasn't interested in Michael Schumacher. A friend of Jordan's would tell Eddie over and over that he needed to sign this Schumacher kid, that he was going to be the next big thing. But Eddie didn't care. His team was up against it financially, and Jordan literally couldn't afford to sign a driver unless they brought a significant amount of money with them. Besides, it didn't matter. Jordan was happy with his current driver lineup of Andrea De Cesaris and Bertrand Gachot, who had been bringing in a nice haul of points for the team during the first half of the season. But when the second half of the season was about to begin, Eddie Jordan all of a sudden needed to find a new Formula 1 driver, as Bertrand Gachot was in jail. During an altercation with a taxi driver, Gachot had produced a can of tear gas and doused his combatant. Gachot's actions were allegedly in self-defense. However, tear gas was an illegal substance in the UK, and he was sentenced to 6 months in jail, rendering Jordan Grand Prix 1-star driver down. Eddie Jordan's friends got back on the phone, pleading with him to sign the Schumacher kid. Eddie said that he couldn't, not unless the driver brought with him some significant money to contribute to the team. So a while later, Schumacher got in contact, saying that he now had a sponsor that was willing to offer $150,000 to get the young German a seat in the 191. But Jordan still refused to sign the driver, as he didn't believe Schumacher really had $150,000. It wasn't until he realised the money was inadvertently coming from a certain giant German car manufacturer that he decided the money was legitimate and finally agreed to give Michael Schumacher the seat. The team figured that for all those dollars, they should help their new driver get acquainted with the car before the upcoming race at Spa in Belgium. So they headed over to Silverstone to give Schumacher a few laps to get to grip with the Jordan 191. Eddie Jordan himself didn't join for the test and opted instead to stay at his home nearby. But when at home with his family, Eddie Jordan got a phone call. The team needed him over at Silverstone as soon as possible, as something was up. It seemed like Silverstone had shortened their track, as this new German driver was lapping faster than the team had ever seen before. Eddie arrived and checked with those in charge of the circuit, but it was completely normal, the same as it has always been. Michael Schumacher, on his first time in a Formula 1 car, was just so damn fast. He made an entire Grand Prix team believe the Silverstone circuit had been shortened. After the test, Schumacher went on to qualify a staggering 7th on his Grand Prix debut in Spa. And even though his car made it but a few hundred meters before grinding to a halt due to a mechanical failure, he immediately became the hottest property in the F1 circus. He raced just once for Jordan Grand Prix, as after Spa he was snatched away by Benetton, where he went on to win 2 world championships in the coming years. But still, it may have all not been possible if a rookie team hadn't given a rookie driver a chance to prove his worth, even if the team didn't really intend to. Jordan Grand Prix's first season in Formula 1 was one of ups and downs, but overall it was a success, and a combination of good fortune, hard work and applied talent showed that perhaps the marriage of the name Jordan and the world's most glamorous sport was a union meant to be. However, Season 2 showed the honeymoon phase for Jordan Grand Prix was definitely over. The team agreed a deal with Yamaha to run their V12 engine, and it proved a terrible decision. A lack of reliability plagued the car throughout the season, and Jordan Grand Prix finished their 1992 campaign scoring just a single point. 1993 was barely better. The team scored 3 points throughout the entire season, with both their cars retiring from more races than they finished. In 1994, things finally began to look up for the team. Rubens Barrichello took the team's first pole position and podium, and even though Eddie Irvine, Barrichello's teammate, was banned for 3 races due to him being deemed responsible for a collision between himself, Jos Verstappen, Eric Bernard and Martin Brundle, Jordan Grand Prix still managed to finish the season as the 5th best constructor in Formula 1. Around the middle of the grid is where Jordan Grand Prix remained for the coming years, occasionally finding a spurt of extra form and fortune to bother the likes of the championship leaders McLaren, Ferrari and Williams, with a well-earned win and a handful of podiums. It wasn't until 1999 that Jordan took things to the next level and found themselves racing for the World Championship. The pivotal moment of the season was round 14 at a rainy Nürburgring. Jordan driver Heinz Harald Frentzen, fresh off his 2nd win of the season and sat 3rd in the World Championship, had qualified in pole position. When the lights went green, Frentzen's teammate, former world champion Damon Hill, was almost immediately out of the Grand Prix. An electrical fault had caused his car to splutter to a halt. And whilst Frentzen led the race gallantly through safety cars and pit stops, holding off challenges from far better funded Ferraris and McLarens, in the end he suffered the same fate as his fellow Jordan driver, with his Jordan 199 giving up the ghost before he could pass the checkered flag. Had he won the race, he would have been in 2nd place and just 1 point away from the championship lead with 2 races to go. It would have been game on for the underdog team dressed in yellow to snatch the World Championship from the financial Goliaths. Instead though, Jordan had to settle for a still brilliant 3rd place in both the Drivers' and Constructors' F1 Championship. After a memorable 1999 campaign, Jordan Grand Prix went back to running in the midfield. Despite the extra funds from their 3rd place constructors finish, and the extra income they received from creating and selling their very own Jordan Grand Prix energy drink, the team was never able to consistently recreate their success from 1999. Instead, after a disappointing 2004 campaign, Eddie Jordan sold the team to a Canadian billionaire. So, what is the Jordan Grand Prix legacy? A 3rd place finish in the championship? Michael Schumacher's first outing in Formula 1? Or the achingly beautiful Jordan 191? Well, it's none of those. The Jordan Grand Prix legacy is that the staff were paid, loans were reimbursed, and sponsors weren't shortchanged. The legacy is that Eddie Jordan built the team from scratch for Formula 1, and he built it strong. So strong, in fact, that in January 2005 it was taken on, intact, by a team called Midland F1. 2 seasons later, after a turbulent season, it was sold on again to a team called Spiker. But still, the foundations of a team comprised from talented and passionate people didn't falter. 12 months after that, it was sold on once more. The team had a different name and a different paint job, but much the same staff. Under their new owners, the squad set up by Eddie Jordan found stability for 10 years, until 2018, when the team was bought by a different Canadian billionaire to whom Eddie had sold his team 13 years beforehand. So the legacy of Eddie Jordan's Jordan Grand Prix, the only ever Irish Formula 1 team, isn't something that happened over 2 decades ago. In fact, his legacy is still very much fighting in Formula One today.
And currently, their name is... Wait. Force India. Force India. Force India. Force India. Done it again.
It's Racing Point.
It's Racing Point. They're currently called Racing Point.
But you do have a Force India car though.
It is a foot, yeah. They look like this anyway at the
they
moment.
Don't. Racing Point's colours are different.
No, it's not. It's pink.
Is it?
They're still pink.
Oh, okay. My bad.
It's like the most obvious car on the grid.
I'm only looking out for one amazing car.
Yeah, the Haas. Look at this. Look at this Haas getter. Haas.
Haas and proud.
Haas.
Haas, yes.
Complete and utter harsehole, really.
Yeah.
Cool. Driving roads.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
We always usually end this by saying, let's go get some lunch. And you know what we're going to do now?
What?
Get some lunch!
Probably won't though, will we?
No, probably not.
Of course, no lunch was eaten on this day. Instead, we headed south towards arguably the most beautiful part of Ireland, and was met with one of the most visually arresting roads we had ever encountered. The Gap of Dunloe is not a road made for driving fast on. Instead, you'll spend as much time as possible crawling along, craning your neck out of the window in an attempt to savour the sight of the surrounding lakes, mountains and valleys. It's one of those few places you don't just feel like you're driving through, but for a fleeting moment you actually feel as though you are a part of the landscape. You're a part of its story. The most surprising aspect of the Gap of Dunloe is perhaps how easy it is not to enjoy it. During the high tourism season, cars have to share this stretch of road with horse-driven carriages, the drivers of which have a great distaste for cars, and you'll find yourself at the receiving end of threatening behaviour and aggressive swearing. Cars are very much allowed on this impressive stretch of road, but you will need to don some thick skin if you are to drive it alongside the carriages.
Okay, so we've just finished. I just realised I've got two cameras going. Okay, so we've just finished driving the Gap of Dunloe. Yay or nay?
Yay, definitely.
Yay.
You just got to be prepared to put up with some abuse from some fairly unwelcoming horse carriage drivers.
Yeah, I would say it's probably actually worth, if you can, going in the winter, because you get all the beauty and none of the busyness, and I presume the horses don't drive on that at that time of year.
Do horses drive?
Ride, walk, whatever, you know what I mean. Right, well, shall we, channel some negativity from those driving horses and talk about some of the MX-5's weaker points?
Yeah, sounds good. Shall I pull in?
Yeah, when you get a chance, yeah. Oh. Eric!
Sorry, I had a chance to pull in.
My lens just went through the gear knob. Oh no.
Well, the weaker part of the MX-5, number one, is the owner, Graham. He's broken.
Oh, what's the next one? Oh no, look at him.
He's broken.
I've broken the CD. That doesn't count against the car. This is aftermarket. That doesn't
Yeah,
count.
it's aftermarket.
Oh no. Hold on, I need to get my zoom back out. Oh, crap.
Danger.
Completely messed with. Right.
Second
Oh,
problem.
Yeah. Okay, is this a real one?
Yeah, this real one.
Yes.
It's the lights, dome lights, interior lights.
Love it. All right, let me get out and we'll
Compose
record
yourself.
This for real. Yeah. Hold on. All right, here we are. I think it's 4 negative things about the Mazda MX-5. Okay, we found an actually better parking spot after all of that. Richard, what is your first MX-5 weakness? Your actual first MX-5 weakness?
Well, thank you, Graham. Let me show you.
Thank you for almost breaking my face earlier.
It is the interior lights that are just here, and there's another one on the other side. Great for if you drop anything on the carpet, but for anything above ankle height, really, they don't illuminate not a thing. I guess as it's a soft top, you're going to struggle to have higher up lighting, so maybe I should be grateful there are lights at all, but they are a little bit pathetic.
Yeah, they are, quite right. Right, number 2, here's the camera. So my first weakness, come this way, is I guess a little more serious, although it does relate to the MX-5's wonderful smile up front. It's a toothless, well, grille-less smile. This is a really good thing because it means that there's excellent airflow into the engine bay. In fact, I've never had any problem whatsoever with this car overheating. However, the flip side to this is with the car's low profile and the fact that it is, you know, quite a gaping space, it is very, very susceptible to stones and things being flung into the car when it's traveling at high speeds. That would mean that, you know, there's a high chance, comparatively to other cars at least, of having a stone slam through your radiator and have coolant all of a sudden leaking all over the place. It just makes it a tad risky. Okay, so design fault number 3 is in the car, and it's just a bit of a silly quirk, and it's something that those who drive left-hand drive MX-5 Miatas will not know about. So obviously, depending on where you buy your car, you're either going to have the steering wheel and pedals on the left or right-hand side of the cabin. However, in the MX-5 Miata, the handbrake doesn't move. It's always here, right in this position. So if you're in a left-hand drive car, you know, that's fine because you've got the handbrake right next to your own leg. If, however, you've got a right-hand drive MX-5 Miata, as I do, I always find myself feeling like a bit of a weirdo because I have to lean over the center console, and if I've got a passenger there, I always seem to have to rub my hand alongside their leg in order to lift up my handbrake. It'd be fine if I was sat next to a supermodel or something lovely like that, but it's not.
What's wrong with my thighs?
It's not so good when you're travelling around Ireland for 4 days with your brother. So, yeah, it's a bit of a, maybe I should get gloves. Right, number 4, I think you're taking this one, Rich.
I am.
Okay, tell us about design flaw number 4.
So design flaw number 4 is the wing mirrors, which is possibly a little bit harsh to Mazda because they've designed them quite cleverly. They made the shape so the airflow is directed away from the cabin, so the driver and passenger get less wind in their faces basically, which is a good thing. What wasn't quite so good though is they cheaped out on making the mirrors adjustable. Most cars you have a fixed housing and an adjustable glass mirror, whereas this, the whole housing moves and there's no controls inside, so you actually have to lean out and adjust it, which is a bit of a faff, particularly if you don't have a passenger to aid you on the passenger side. What's also annoying as well is, say you park at on a busy side of the road and you tuck your mirror in, there's no fixed kind of click it back into like the fixed spot that you want it in. So every time you fold the mirror in, you have to go through the whole performance of fine-tuning it again.
With that being said, all the finicky wing mirrors and useless interior lights in the world can't deduct from what the MX-5 was made to do, and that's drive. Luckily, we had arrived at the perfect place for such an activity. The very place we had set out to find 12 hours, 1 failed attempt at souvenir shopping, several rudely driven horses, and 170 rather odd miles ago. It's called the Healy Pass, and it's a world-class driving road. On a sunny day, it's a pilgrimage site for petrol heads all over the country, and you'll find this 4-kilometre stretch of tarmac teeming with everything from Triumphs to TVRs. Today though was not a sunny day, and about that fact, we were actually very, very happy.
Flipping heck.
Amazing.
Best driving road you ever been on?
I think so. Well, how about that?
Flipping heck.
That was amazing.
I mean, just to look at, it was spectacular enough.
Just fantastic. The view was fantastic. The driving was fantastic. This car was perfectly suited to that pass. Just can't ask for more.
Yeah,
You know,
it's worth
incredible.
the trip. It really is. Right.
I wouldn't like to say what it's like on a hot sunny day. I imagine it's teeming with people because a road that good isn't going to be, you know, not known about.
Yes, very true. But
So we got lucky in some ways that it's a bit grey, overcast, and a bit drizzly because I think that took away a lot of the people.
but none of the fun.
No, particularly in this car, you don't need a lot of grip. You don't need to go fast because the whole part of it is rolling around the corners and, you know, going at a speed under the limit.
Getting your tail out a little bit, and it's all
Yeah.
great fun. Right, now let's go and
Find somewhere to sleep.
find some shelter.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, the flipping it. Just check that out. That is absolutely amazing.
Well, I'm not going to check it out, Graham. I'm too busy driving, and also I need a wee too bad.
Right, well, actually, can we pull over so I can get a final shot to finish the episode?
Well, gladly.
What an incredible view. Are you kidding? That is so gross. Oh, you animal. That's absolutely going in. This is ending. This is the ending for the episode.
No way. Do not end the episode.
Thanks for watching episode 3. Be sure to tune in to episode 4, where we attempt drifting in our stock Mazda MX-5, share some of the Miata NA's coolest design features, and head off to Ireland's capital city to indulge in a very necessary tourist activity. In the meantime, please do consider subscribing to my channel, as it would be great to have you along for this journey. Thanks.